Hello everybody and welcome back to CaiKeys and to the long-awaited sequel to the very well-received Man Stands in a Field and Rants About Things which doesn't really concern him. The sequel is here. Man stands next to a big tree and talks about things which does concern him, and I've picked the perfect place to do it, right next to an active quarry. So the sound quality is going to be absolutely bang on. Now, if you're new to the channel or if you've just not been paying attention, I love cars, but my main job, the thing which gets me out of bed every morning, not by choice but by necessity, is HGV driving. I am an HGV driver, and to tide you over until the next road test gets back on the road, which I can assure you it will, I figured that I'd tell you a little bit about my job. So if you're thinking of getting into HGV driving, this video will be hopefully perfect for you, and I hope that I answer a few questions and give yourself a few little things to think about if you're thinking of getting into this line of work. They didn't have any Yorkies at the shop, and I've had to substitute that for a Bounty, and I've had to substitute the vodka for a bottle of Dandelion and Burdock, and really, I wanted to look like a truck driver. I'm looking like I'm cosplaying one of the village people, you know, the Native American fella, so this is coming off. But I figured today, to tide you all over, I'd talk about my job, which is HGV driving, and really I wanted to outline the pros and the cons if you're thinking of getting into this industry, because it's an industry which I genuinely do enjoy, but after having spent just over 3 years in it, I think I'm qualified enough to say that really you need to have a certain mentality to stick with this job and to enjoy it, because there's an awful lot of HGV drivers who hate their job, and that's really no way to live. Bear in mind that you're at your job for so much of the week. The vast majority of your time really is at your job. You need something which you genuinely enjoy. So I'm here today to tell you the pros and the cons, and just to outline a few things to consider if you're thinking of getting into this job. So firstly, let me tell you about my story of how I got into the industry and how you can too. So I started my job really, and it was towards the tail end of COVID. I believe it was August 2021. I'd just got out of university, a cherubic, rosy-cheeked young man, and I was looking at jobs. Now, I love cars, as you know by my channel. They're my passion. They're essentially, they're a really big part of my life. I don't want to get too, too emotional about it, but I thought, if I'm doing a job and I'm going to be at it a lot, I'm not going to really chase the money. I'm going to do something I genuinely want. And I applied to be a car salesman. I got the job, and my hopes and dreams were very, very quickly crushed. Essentially felt like I was kind of scamming people. Genuinely, there were some horrible stories from my brief time at the car sales room which I worked at, and so I left that job dismayed, and I thought, I don't want another job where I'm sat behind a desk like you are with car sales. It was soul crushing, frankly. And then I remembered back, and the jobs which I have loved the most are jobs in which I've been allowed my own freedom, in which I'm not nagged, in which I'm just given something at the start of the day to do at my own pace throughout the day. I used to be a leaflet distributor. The money wasn't very good. It just tided me over from one year to the next of university. I absolutely loved that job, left to my own devices, and I thought, let's apply to be a tram driver, let's apply to be a truck driver, let's see what happens. Never heard back from the tram driver one, but fair enough. I did get a call back from the truck driving interview. So I get there, and essentially I got the job, and they'd pay for your training. Absolutely fantastic. You see, there's two real ways into this industry, and the first one, which I went through, is a lot harder to get into nowadays. Now, when I joined, I don't know if you recall, they kept banging on about this driver shortage. I've heard multiple different things. I've heard some drivers say, yes, there was a real driver shortage, and I've heard some people and transport managers say, no, there actually wasn't. But regardless, I hopped in at the driver shortage, and the company which I joined were nice enough to pay for my training. So I went from a car to driving a Class 2 HGV within just over a week. It was really, really quick. Really, that's how long it takes. It doesn't take very long. It's not like learning to drive a car. It is like learning to drive over again, because you have to relearn, but you still have those basic skills, so it's a lot quicker than you may anticipate. If you are not fortunate enough to hop into one of these jobs, which I did, then you're probably going to be looking at training yourself. And there's a variety of companies who will do that for you. You've just got to hand them a fair bit of cash, and I believe that it's over £1,000. I can't talk firsthand, but just go look at your company which you're thinking of applying for. Maybe look on Reddit, on the UK trucking subreddit, or on Facebook groups. Ask which companies are good to go for and roughly how much it'll cost. But really, I think the ballpark figure is around £1,000 to £1,500. They'll train you up. Now, there's two ways you can go about this. I'm sure you already know this, but there's Class 1 and there's Class 2. Class 1 are the bendy lorries, the big ones with the tractor unit and the actual trailer so they can kind of pivot round. They can turn round like that. And then Class 2 are the smaller trucks, which are rigid, take about 5 football fields to turn round, but they can get to places that other Class 1s can't reach, like kind of down tight alleyways, what have you. I am a Class 2 driver because when I started, you couldn't go straight from a car to a Class 1, but you can now. So personally, I don't see the point of training for a Class 2 licence, because if you can drive a Class 1, you are entitled to drive a Class 2. I'm not trying to hide my insecurities here, but I am not a steering wheel attendant. Class 2 drivers deserve respect. If you are applying yourself and you're funding yourself, you're probably really going to be going onto an agency, because there are very few, if any, contracts who will hire brand new passes. They want to see that you actually have that training, and therefore it can be a little bit uncertain when you first join the job. One thing to consider is that if you do get a contract like mine, where they will train you up, you need to consider that you're going to be locked in that company for 1 year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years. And if you decide to leave, you're going to have to pay back your training costs to the company, which can kind of leave you between a rock and a hard place if you get on the job and it's not really what you wanted. The positives of the agencies are that you can sack off a place that you really don't like and go to a different place, and they're generally going to be okay with that. The pay is arguably better, but you don't have that real job security. They're always going to be wanting HGV drivers, and I'll come to this in a little bit when I talk about the job which I'm in now, but the fact of the matter is that really you need to potentially take the shit when you start. Excuse the French. This leads me on to my first point, and this is probably the point that you're going to be focusing on most. Look, it's money. At the end of the day, we get out of bed and we go to our jobs, and yes, sometimes we like them, but ultimately the main reason, we can all admit, we're there because of the money. We're there to put food on the table, we're there to afford the insurance to do all our really cool road tests. Check out the other videos, by the way. And, you know, we're there to provide for our families or our loved ones or even ourselves. And therefore, money is really important. There's always been this myth circulating that HGV drivers are absolutely raking it in. You know, they're on the big bucks. And sometimes, in certain cases, yeah, it's true. There's HGV drivers in this country that are bringing in £60,000 a year, but they're few and far between, and they make so many sacrifices. Personally, I don't consider it worth it. Sure, if it suits you to go out on Monday and come back on Friday, Saturday after working 60 hours and spending 4 or 5 nights in the cab, then by all means, that genuinely may suit you, and perfect, good for you. You will be absolutely raking it in. But what I want to drill into really is that it is not impossible but unlikely, especially when you start, that you will not be making that much over or even hitting the national average wage of, I believe it's £32,000, a figure somewhere around here. I've seen loads of sources. And that was the case with me. When I started, yes, this company paid for my training, but once I got onto it and actually got into a contract with them, the pay wasn't particularly good. This is a different company that I'm with now, so I can kind of say this. In fact, the company which I was with don't exist in the UK anymore. But really, looking back on it, was really underpaid, I think. I was only on about 30p more per hour than minimum wage for the responsibility of driving an 18, sometimes 26-ton truck around town centres, city centres, which I'd personally never been to before. But not only that, delivering to construction sites, which may not even, in some cases, have had postcodes yet, or, were horrifically signposted. Very, very difficult job to get to start with, and not particularly fairly compensated. When I bear in mind the fact that I used to drive all the way into Manchester from where I am now to start my job, when you take into account the fuel I was spending, I honestly would have been far better off just working down the supermarket stacking shelves, genuinely. And I think, why did I stick with that contract for so long? The fact of the matter is, and with exception to the agency, I can't speak for all the agencies, but if you jump on a contract like I did, you may have to sit around, build up that experience, not earning as much as you'd hope, in order to actually bring in the big money and hopefully, really, money aside, get on a contract that suits you. Like my contract right now, it really personally suits me, but it's taken 3 years to find this, and I've needed that experience. There's loads of YouTubers, Trucker Tim, for example, solid guy. I like his channel, and I really appreciate his positive attitude, but he's done really well for himself. I believe, I'm not following him too much, but I believe that he has his own truck, an older Scania V8, and fantastic. It's done so well for him, and he's a really good chap at, bringing the younger audience into truck driving, because the average age of a truck driver, I believe, is 53. Now, I'm 24. I started when I was just about to turn 21. I'm the exception to the rule, and if he brings younger people over to get them into the industry, absolutely fantastic, but you're not going to be earning Trucker Tim money immediately or perhaps ever. Just gauge your expectations. It may take some time. So as I was saying, some drivers are making loads of money, but there is a sacrifice. They put in the work and they put in the hours. You need to consider that this job may potentially be really, really difficult on your family life and on your personal mental health. It's something that really needs to be considered, and there's a lot of guys in the industry who'll go, oh, man up, but it's something that we really genuinely need to talk about. There's so many people who struggle with mental health and they actually don't address it. Just make sure that you are okay spending this time out. If you have a family, especially if you have a young family, the pressure that potentially doing nights out is going to do, or at the very least not having certain end times because it's impossible in the logistics industry, is going to be genuinely really it's going to put a strain on things. Regardless, this isn't your 9-to-5 office job with set hours where you know when and where you're going to be back. This is potentially unpredictable. You might be working weekends. You might be off in the week when your partner is in. You might not be able to do things that you previously would. There's sacrifices to be made. But on the plus side, there's also positives to that. Potentially you've got a young child and you might have a job, in which case you're off on certain days of the week. It's not all negative, but it really is something to consider. There's been some tragic cases where drivers have been overworked, they've been struggling, and unfortunately they've ended up taking their own lives in their trucks. I think the solitude of being in a truck all day, personally I love it, but if you're in a bad mental place, sitting alone all day really isn't going to help matters. So just definitely don't become romanticised with this idea of trucking. I really like it. It's great. It's a lifestyle which I like, but the isolation, whilst there are positives to it, there's also negatives to it. It's not all plain sailing. You've probably heard a fair bit about tachographs, and lots of drivers come off like they're these really intimidating, scary things that you have to be constantly telling everybody what you're doing at all hours. They're really not a massive deal. The rules against them, the rules with them are admittedly very complex, and they've taken me some time to master, and I still do have to sometimes search things, whether I can do such and such a thing, but essentially these just keep you compliant. Just to simplify matters, I'm not going into working hours for the week. You need to take a 15-minute break before every 6 hours and a 30-minute break for every 4.5 hours of driving time. It sounds complex. When you begin your job, you will be trained. You'll have a CPC. You'll get all of this. Don't be massively put off by drivers who say that they're the devil. They're really not. They keep you compliant. If your office want you to do something which you cannot do, they're there really to back you up. You go, look, I physically cannot do this because I will get an infringement, and I'm not getting an infringement. I personally haven't had any issues with people if I was going to get an infringement and I've refused to take a dropout, for example. It's part of the job. Your transport managers really, or they should, want to remain as compliant as possible. Don't be too intimidated. I'm not going to touch on them too much. There's a big search button up there if you want to search for tacho rules. Please do, because you need to know them, but There's a fantastic app, by the way, Taco Master. When you're all set up with your driving card, when you're in the job, download Taco Master, ask for your login, use it. It is absolutely fantastic. It will tell you all of what you can do, your average hours for the week. Let's move on to the next point, because I don't want to bore the hell out of you if you're not particularly interested in this very boring section of the job. Let's talk about the attitude that you need to have if you're going to embark in this sector. And I have briefly touched on that, but I want to talk about road manners. So look, let's discuss road rage. I think we've all done it. We've all been responsible for getting a little bit out of hand when something stupid's happened. Maybe someone's pulled out in front of you and it's ridiculous. Maybe there's a taxi waiting in the middle of the road or right on a corner to pick someone up. What are you bloody doing? Did you get your license from a packet of cornflakes? The answer is probably yes, but the thing is, people always say, look, a car is a weapon. A car weighs 1.5 tons, what have you. A HGV can weigh up to 44 tons, and that's not even taking into account if you're doing those oversized loads. That's like 30 times heavier than a car, potentially. If a car is a weapon, then a truck is a bloody nuclear bomb. You need to have an attitude where things don't get to you. Inevitably, driving standards just appear to be getting worse across the board. They are horrendous, but you cannot get irate. I was actually driving down the A1 southbound one time, just in the left lane, 53 miles an hour. And this car comes up, it's completely dead, by the way, middle of the day, but completely dead. Car comes up in the middle lane, about 55, very slowly, gets completely level with the middle of my truck and just starts moving over. I genuinely don't know what was going on. I had to lay on the horn because I'm making them aware there's a big truck. Uncouth. He's made a mistake, but why would I want to make the situation worse? I don't want to make this video sound completely negative, though, because I really do genuinely love my job. So I want to talk about the really, really good things which I genuinely enjoy. And it is the variety of the job. I absolutely love it. My old job, even when I knew where I'd be, every day was different. Road conditions are different. There might be a diversion. You might have to go a different way. You might have to do one extra stop on the way back. And my current job takes me all over the place. I'm back on the same day, so I don't go massively too far. I don't go too much lower than, say, Birmingham, and I won't go into Scotland, but we'll do Wales or whatever. Let me tell you, when you're driving into Wales and towards Anglesey, and the sunset is coming over, and you're crossing the Menai Strait, and that music just hits, there is nothing better in this world. It is absolutely glorious, and there is nowhere else I'd rather be. When you're heading over the Woodhead Pass, and the sunrise is just coming up over the moors, and yet again, you've got to have the right song on for this. A little bit of Kate Bush. You know, Kate Bush is playing when the crescendo hits, and sun, it's gorgeous. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. You can stick me on a desk, boring, homogenous, every day is the exact same. Truck driving, there are moments which are fantastic. There will be moments which will really stress you out. You might be down a tiny little country road around here, and you do, and the sense of achievement and accomplishment is fantastic. There's nothing better. It's those little victories that you come home and you think, you know what, I've had a really genuinely good day. I've enjoyed today. It happens. It's not all just boring grey motorway. Like, look, on a day like today, if I was driving up there round the moors, that'd be very bloody pleasant. Of course, sometimes you're stuck on Spaghetti Junction at 5 p.m. and you don't move, and your phones run out of battery, so you can't listen to anything. So you're stuck listening to Birmingham Grime Station or whatever, and it's bloody foul. But I think that those bad moments make the good moments even better. You take the good with the bad. You need this mentality of positivity. But look, the job is also really varied. So some jobs, such as HGV Class 1, jobs where you're driving a tractor and a trailer, lots of these, they won't actually let you unload yourself. When you're going from RDC to RDC, you can't unload the truck, and it can be quite a sedate lifestyle. Lots of Class 2 jobs are a little bit more involved in that. There's a lot of heavy lifting and everything, and therefore you stay physically fit. Now, if you are a Class 1 driver, then you do need to remain physically fit. Look, I'm not the peak of male physique, but I do have a fairly physical job with fairly heavy lifting, and I have a gym membership. Doesn't mean I go to the gym, but having a membership is better than not having one, right? And see how smooth this is. I want to talk about today's sponsor, bucketzone.com. If you are an athletic kind of person, then go to bucketzone.com, because they have a wide list of athletic events for you to join in. So go on and see if there's anything that interests you. You know, marathons, 5Ks, 10Ks, cycling events, competitive and non-competitive. And if you're thinking of hosting one of these, then go to bucketzone.com, because it's free to list your athletic event. A massive thanks to Phil for sponsoring the channel. It's been genuinely really helpful. And so, yeah, if you're into staying physically fit, then go to bucketzone.com. But also, if you are a truck driver, then consider getting out. Stop scoffing those petrol station pasties, as lovely as they are, because truck drivers are far more likely to suffer from heart attacks, they're far more likely to suffer from strokes, and they're far more likely to suffer from general obesity. And that, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, is not the most attractive thing in the world. If you're stressing out your family anyway by being away from home, scoffing pasty upon pasty and looking like Homer Simpson is not going to help matters. So there, I didn't really want to focus on the actual day-to-day life in the job, just because I can't really film my job. My company don't let me, but it's perfectly fine to talk about the industry. And so I thought I'd just give you a few little things to consider, a few positives, a few negatives of the job, but generally I enjoy it. It suits me. But if you're thinking of getting into this, you really need to make sure that this industry is right for you. Will you be able to suffer those long hours, potentially starting at 4 o'clock in the morning, finishing at 7 o'clock? So bear in mind, you might have to set off at 3:30 to get in to 4, finish at 7, back at 7:30, to potentially shorten down your rest, if you choose, to be back in for 4 o'clock the following morning. You're setting off before people even wake up. You're coming back when people are settling down for the night with a nice glass of wine. And you can't drink because you've got to be in for the next day. Things like that. Just consider this. Is this the right career for you? It's going to be the most difficult thing when you start off. The job does get easier. You get used to the dimensions of the vehicle. Every 5 minutes you will be getting out of your truck to check the back end. And I still do it now. You know, I get out to check, am I going to clear this? If people want to beep, then sod 'em, they can beep. Take your time. Be sensible, have this approach of I'm back when I'm back. Do not rush. Whatever you do, do not rush. It can be a really rewarding career. There can be those moments, as I've explained earlier, when the music hits, the scenery is absolutely gorgeous, and it is the greatest job in the world. And there can be others, just like with every job, when things are really not going well. But I think with HGV driving and unpredictable industries, more than many others, these kind of things do arise, and these kind of things do happen. So I want to make this a little bit of a Q&A below. If you have any questions, or you think that there's something I haven't covered, then please leave it below, and let's start a little bit of a conversation. I cannot guarantee that I can respond to every single one, but I will respond to what I can. Like I said, I've been in this industry for just over 3 years. As you can tell, I've not been ground down like many other drivers have, and I'm still fairly optimistic about this. So if there's anything that you want to know, then please ask me, and I will do my best to responding. As I said earlier, road tests will be back up soon enough. My cat did genuinely eat my microphone, and I've got to order another one, but I have purchased a new car. It is absolutely gorgeous. It's a Mercedes CLK, and I think I'm actually in love with it. Stay tuned for that. And let me know if you like these kind of discussion Q&A videos. There's something to tide you over. There's a few more things coming with the channel this year, and I do apologise for my hiatus, but I really genuinely appreciate your support, because I like making videos for you lot. So please leave your questions, your comments, everything below, and I'll try and get back to them. But in the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching, and please remember, don't forget your CaiKeys, and to subscribe if you're new. Thank you and goodbye.